Yeah, we thought, knowing that there's a lot of attention given to the homeless activities in the community, we thought we'd give the community an update on what the homeless activities are and how the city's addressing those, and some of the things that are going on that you're not aware of, and some of the plans for the future, and some hopes for the future. So starting off with that would be our chief of police, Dan Yan. He'll be followed by a building official, and Martin will be followed by our social services group from the SWAG organization. So, Chief, go ahead and start us off.
Thank you, Gary. Good evening, Mayor, City Council, and citizens of Wildomar. I appreciate you letting me come up. I really wanted to come up just to, as Gary said, kind of share what we're all seeing out there in the community and what the different parts of all of us have as a community to tackle this issue and this problem. As you see, we can go to, do I have the clicker? So homelessness, you probably heard, is not a crime, and in fact that is true, that being homeless is not in and of itself a crime. But what it does do is it creates many quality of life issues that we all have to deal with, from all of our citizens to the police department to our different city agencies, building safety code, our nonprofit groups, etc. And our role as a police department, as you would know, will deal with the criminal issues that come from those that live the homeless or transient lifestyle, that are perpetual, what we call habitual homeless or transient, not the ones necessarily that are down on their luck that we can help, but the ones that are kind of creating the criminal element in the city. So there are several crimes associated with homelessness, and trespass, drug-related issues, theft, assaults, etc. And those are what we usually get calls for: suspicious persons, and sometimes those are the people that are living in encampments or living in the city and the surrounding area. But it's not only a police issue, as I said, it's a community issue, and we're working in partnership with building and safety code owners, the community, the property owners, and nonprofit organizations on a regular basis, also other agencies in other cities, to try to tackle this issue. It's not an easy issue to tackle. There's some complicated contributing factors, some of which has been recent legislation over the last several years contributing to this issue. Many of you know about it, some of the citizens may not, but AB 109 in 2011 was our realignment that assisted with overpopulation in the prisons, but unfortunately created overcrowding in the local jail systems, ultimately leading to not enough bed space here in our county, and having our sheriff have to make a decision based on state law. We're not able to keep only a certain amount, they have to have a bed, etc., etc. So we were forced to release the best of the worst, so to speak, which increases the amount of people getting off early and people on our streets. Also a criminal element. Prop 47 in 2014, that was basically the decriminalization of many of the drug-related issues. That, again, was put out as a kind of safe schools initiative to, in theory, save money and bring it back to the schools for not incarcerating people that weren't true criminals. But really what that did was it took some teeth away from the really good programs that were in the county, drug programs that we were able to now tell people that were arrested for drug violations that if they went to drug court and got clean and got help, those charges would be reduced from felony to misdemeanor or dismissed altogether. When now, if you don't have a felony charge, there's no teeth to those programs, and many people will not take those programs because they're not going to do any jail time on a misdemeanor, and it really doesn't matter to them. So therefore they're not getting the help, and then you have that cycle that continues. So that's kind of some of the backlash of that. And Prop 57 in 2016 was kind of more of the same. The rehabilitative versus punishment on the parole side, and allowing more parolees to get off parole early for different things. So it kind of compounds the issues of what we're seeing with the criminal element, not getting help with drug addicted, and continuing that cycle, having to steal to feed their addictions, etc., etc., and it equals increased transients and drugs and associated crime. So, as I said, we focus on the criminal issues: drugs, trespass, assaults, theft, etc. And we work with code to identify the properties that have that we need to get trespass letters or 602 letters. One of the things that obviously we have to do is have the right to go on people's personal property and have the permission to arrest people that aren't allowed to be there. So we have to have a legal justification. Part of that is finding that information and getting it on file with a lot of absentee property owners that are not around or don't know this is happening. And keep in mind, many of these property owners, they work with us to try to clean up their properties, but they're using their own money and expenses to try to do that as well, and they become victims as well of some of these things. Now, we do have limited resources, so what we're doing now, we don't have any special teams to tackle this. We don't have homeless outreach teams. We don't have problem-oriented policing teams. We have our patrol, and what we're doing now is I'm trying to utilize patrol hours directed at what we have when we get the calls for service, but also some of those hours that maybe not fielded on a regular basis, saving those up, putting overtime, and also the occasional overtime money that we're able to get through the city as we scrimp and save to put directed patrol out for hot spots and Band-Aids. But that's what we're doing now with our limited resources. We're also working with nonprofit groups. We're working hand in hand with Code and the surrounding agencies to get this done. Now, just a recent example of some of this directed enforcement, Lake Elsinore has a community services deputy that was brought on for the purpose of gathering resources and dealing with quality of life issues. He's been a really good tool. I know that because he works for me as I wear that hat as well. And like I said, I ask the police chief over there at Lake Elsinore on a regular basis to make sure he helps me out, and he always is very, very good at that since it is me. So since he has an eye for all of who's who in the zoo with all the regulars in our area, as you know, they are regulars. Most of the ones we can get help or transient, we get them help. The others are in our area, and so they go between Wildomar, Lake Elsinore, and surrounding areas. So we are kind of pushing them from place to place when we clean them up, but we know who they are. And so therefore, I use this officer for a lot of that directed patrol instead of reinventing the wheel. So just in the last couple of weeks, he's identified a lot of people and I've targeted some of that enforcement with him taking the lead. And he's identified a lot of the who's who in the zoo, did a lot of field interviews. And he assisted 4 people with obtaining some needed documentation, DMV, DD-214 military paperwork, etc. A lot of the issues that homeless people have to get off is they need certain paperwork to get jobs. They need a license to get a job. They can't get a job without a license, etc. So some of these things that SWAG does and some of these things that we can do is hook them up with the resources to get some of those things. So we assisted with that, and we also arrested a couple, and that's just an example of what happened last week. We do that on a regular basis, ongoing, whenever we can, with the resources we have. So I really want to kind of, before I pass it off, I want to talk about the reality of the situation. Many will not accept the help, and many of the homeless that are reoccurring out there will not accept. We will always offer them help. We don't want to target our homeless community and think we're just there to take them to jail. If they're committing crimes, we will. If we can help them, we'll give them the resources they need to hopefully long-term get off the streets. Most of the crimes are misdemeanors or less. There's no jail time, and we do end up moving the problem from place to place. So with that, as a police department, we have to balance our resources, our limited resources. Many times, we want to scoop these guys up, maybe take them to jail for a misdemeanor or an infraction, and that takes several hours of an officer's time or a community service officer's time off the street, write a report when we know in many of these trespass cases, the DA will not file unless they have a certain amount of time. You have to build a very long case. So just as part of education to the community, there may be some times where you call and you say, well, nothing happened to the guy, he just got moved along. Some of that is having to balance our resources and realize that if we take an officer off the street for a lower level issue, when we have a lot of calls pending, then we put the public at risk for other things. So we do balance that on a regular basis, but we also try to focus on those quality of life issues whenever we can. And I also want to say that nobody here is the hero. The police can't do it alone, the city can't do it alone, citizens can't do it alone, nonprofits and religious organizations can't do it alone. We all have to take a piece of the pie. This is not an issue that's going to be solved overnight. None of us are going to solve it by ourselves. So I stress collaboration, and We do that on a regular basis. We work in conjunction with those departments and groups I mentioned. And as far as communication, it's not the old days of driving them to the next city or the next region. Most of us are dealing with each other on a regular basis. So we try to take the same approach and the same strategy, with the county and the surrounding cities. I meet with the other chiefs of police on a regular basis. Like I said, I know the chief of police from Lake Elsinore and also the captain of the Lake Elsinore station. But on top of that, I meet with a chief from Murrieta, I meet with the Temecula chief, I meet with the Paris chief, and on a regular basis we know each other by first name, and that way it creates that collaboration and that communication, so we're not doing some of those things that put cities at risk. And also, we couldn't do it without the help of, like I said, the city officials and the nonprofit groups. So I am going to finish my part, and I'm going to hand it off to Mr. Martin Hilberry from Building and Safety. And thank you.
Thank you, Chief. And as the Chief was alluding to, working with the other chiefs in the region, the cities work with the other cities on this issue. The regional homeless program where we meet with all the other surrounding cities, because we realize it's the balloon issue. You squeeze it in one area, it's just going to pop out in another. So if they get squeezed in, if folks have an issue in Elsinore, then they move over to Wildomar, then they move to Murrieta. So we need to approach it on a regional basis. WRCOG has helped with that. You'll hear more about that with the funding for the SWAG program. But Martin, I'll give you an update what's going on here at the city with building official, code enforcement, just a brief updated status of where we are. Thanks, Martin.
Mayor and Council, yes, we are, and the Chief put it well in regards to the cooperative efforts. No one entity can do this on their own, and to deal with the situations that exist in our communities. The building department and code enforcement department work on a compliance basis. We try to obtain compliance. We're dealing with owners that are actually victims as well. So it's a little tough when someone's staying on your property and doing damage to your property, and we go up and give them a violation. So our first steps in this process is to contact the property owners and get them to do the trespass letter, do all the things, so we can get all the other entities involved in resolving property problems. These properties will sometimes be dealing with hazardous waste. They will be dealing with laws that exist today where they have to retain these possessions of these homeless people for a period of time. There's a lot of expense and cost that goes into them. They fence the properties, and then they turn around and tear the fencing down. So there's a lot of things that happen. It's a continual process for us. We identify several properties in the community that we have problems with the exception of one. They're all absentee owners. They're off-site owners. So the desire to get something done is sometimes difficult. Contacting who's the person responsible for the property, that kind of thing. Right now, we have 5 main ones that we have identified, and they're all in different levels of citations with the city. As you're aware, we go through a almost 3-month process to get to a citation level, and they all in the citation process. Problem with the citation process, it is a citation, and the cost sometimes can be overwhelming for actually trying to get something done on these properties. So it's difficult. One of the things I want to bring up to you, that most of our complaint function in this is usually for inappropriate land use and accumulation of rubbish. There again, the homeless are not, it's not a crime to be homeless. It's a crime with what activity that partakes from it. So the ordinance that's being proposed later tonight is going to give us a tool in our toolbox that we could help us with the property owners and give some initiative to get some things done. That would be extremely helpful. and creating an environment to where we can get owners to be more cooperative and taking action on these properties. So, and that's the important part of it. It's our code enforcement officer does a great job in working in these communities. A lot of these residents have been in our community for years, literally, and they all know Keith by name, and so it's an environment to where they actually trust him. They understand that we have a life safety issue, we have a job to do, but they also recognize that they're people, you know. So we have it's a balance, and like working with the social groups that's going to be presenting their successes and the what's available to actually help these folks get out of these environments, because unless we can do that, this is never going to really go away. It's just going to have to be managed. And with that, turn it over to Swag and their representative.
Great, thank you, Mark.
Thank you. Thank you.
Excuse me, good evening, everybody. My name is Aaron, I'm part of the Social Work Action Group team. Monica, to introduce yourselves.
I'm Monica.
Hello, I'm David. How's it going?
Good. Kendra.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much. As previously mentioned, we're part of a WRCOG grant where we're able to work 6 hours a week in 5 southwestern cities: Wildomar, Lake Elsinore, Murrieta, Temecula, and Menifee. And in doing so, as the chief of police mentioned, we work closely with the police department because there's a criminal element quite often, and so we use that cooperation to leverage bringing the bottom up on these individuals, so we can help get them off the streets and help raise that bottom. And when I say that, drug abuse, substance abuse, mental illness is what's plaguing our streets, and it's not just the Wildomar or any of the 5 cities. It's across the country, as we've heard. So with drug addiction and mental health, it's often that bad weather, they're about to get arrested, they've been arrested, they're going to get arrested again, and so here's an alternative. We build a rapport. It's about relationship building, so we're working behind the scenes, and then hopefully on those enforcement days or those days where it was just I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, and that's where we step in and let's go to rehab, let's go to detox, let's go to mental health facility. It's not easy, it's challenging, but it's what we do. We specialize in street outreach. There's a lot of organizations and entities that serve homeless people. Homelessness, it's a broad spectrum from people who are facing homelessness, who are claiming, I shouldn't say claiming, but couch surfing. They don't have their own place, but they're housed. It's a very different group of people than people that are on the streets. They've lost all of their familial support. Friends, family have turned their back on them. So we try to be that helping hand and inspire them to love themselves again and want to get help. And so we've been working now 6 hours a week in the months of April, May, and June. And in doing that, we've helped 7 individuals get off the streets of Wildomar, and all 7 at one time or another have been panhandling right out here in the shopping center. What we call chronically homeless people who have been on the streets a year or more, have a disabling condition, a mental health, or a physical disability. And so for those individuals, we got into detox and long-term residential treatment. One was a trip home. That's another thing we offer. You've been disengaged, family reunification, disengaged from their family, and we help build that support. Lots of phone calls take place, sending pictures, helping family, want to get re-involved again in their distant family member's life. And then permanent housing, we're able to get 2 people into permanent housing. So 7 may sound like a small number, but everyone's a huge success for us. And so our hope is that grant or other funds will present themselves so we can do this on more of a full-time basis, because that's what it takes. It's hard to say we'll see you next week, because it's in the moment, and if we're here daily, we can help push that individual for change. So we're part of a faith-based coalition with Lake Elsinore and Wildomar. We do that monthly. So if anybody is interested, please email me. My email is Aaron, AARON, @theswag.org.
The swag.
The Swag. Thank you. we're not a for-profit business, but we wanted to have a branding so people can recognize us and so forth.
Don't ever forget it.
So we invite anybody to be a part of that because there's a lot of work happening behind the scenes with the faith-based community. And as the chief said, it takes a community. And so we leverage all resources, to help, if 20 people are involved to help one person get off the streets, it's all worth it in our opinion, so. Oh, and our business card, we left some at the rear of the building with the other more important business cards. So if you ever come across somebody, we encourage to give our card instead of change, instead of your change, because quite often that goes to their substance abuse. So, we are here.
Great.
Anybody have any questions?
Very good. Dustin, a question?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Questions. You talked about funding. How long are you funded through right now?
It's expected to run out in September.
Okay.
We're hoping, there's a lot of monies coming down from the state. There's $500 million, and I know Mr. Riley and some of his staff members, Felicia, are working. We're trying to help identify how Wildomar can apply for that, but of course nothing's guaranteed, and we have to share with the whole county, and some other areas have strong leverage with that funding, but
Okay.
we're open.
Hoping more.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get it going. I mean, so I think it's important. I think what Capman said, we all have to work together. That's the answer. Also, when you say 6 hours a week, are you doing 6 hours a week in each city? Like
Yes.
6 in Wildomar, 6 Elsinore, 6 Merritt? Okay. Okay.
So it makes it difficult, and we're better social workers than fundraisers. So
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
not just saying, hey, we want more money.
Yeah.
But it's to do our job better. Like I said, it's hard to say, we do a lot more than 6 hours in every city. There's 4 of us full-time, and so, but again, we would like to be able to be here on a regular basis. So, we bug and encourage in a positive way, and, and hopefully we're there that day when they say, fine, I'm done. And we can take them instead of, it's not a bus ride, it's not, we'll call a taxi or an Uber, we're gonna take you.
Yeah.
Follow people through the process.
My real dad was homeless before he passed away, and I think part of he got into getting help, and it was because there was familiarity with, I think it was a church group that he ended up talking to. So I think it's important to be able to be consistent.
Absolutely.
Building that trust for sure.
Yeah, let them know you.
Yeah.
So awesome. Thank you.
Very good. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
A heartfelt thank you. Keep up the good work.
Okay, thank you.